Chapter 10. The Man of the House. They say that when the stock market crashed, men were so upset at losing their fortunes that they threw themselves off of buildings. I can't imagine killing myself over something like that, but then again, I've never had a fortune to lose. Pudding is dozing in the wagon under the hot sun, and Termite is chasing Smokey around the porch. Whenever Termite gets too close, my cat swipes the dog with her sharp claws. Termite howls and howls. "Why do you name that dog Termite?" I ask Beans. "He followed me home one day. Ma told me to get rid of him, but no matter what I did, he always came back." "Can't get rid of termites," Porkchop says. The postman walks up. Being a postman is just about the best job a person can have. The hours are good, and then, of course, there's the job security. There's no end of bad news to deliver in hard times. "Letter for you, Miss Turtle," he says, handing me an envelope. "Thanks," I say, and tear it open. Dear Turtle, how are you, baby? I miss you something awful. Mrs. Budnick never sleeps and doesn't care if anybody else does either. She thinks nothing of waking me up in the middle of the night to make her tea or toast. I'm so tired I can barely see straight. The only thing that keeps me going is thinking of you. Someday this will all be behind us, I promise. I've been thinking that maybe I can become an actress. Can't you just see my name in lights? All I need to do now is get a screen test with Warner Brothers. Love always, Mama. P.S. Please give your aunt my love, and tell her not to kiss any Curry boys. I sigh. This is why I worry about Mama. She's always getting zany ideas. I don't know what she'd do without me to figure things out. "What's it say?" Kermit asks me. "Mama's head is so high in the clouds, I'm surprised she doesn't bump into Amelia Earhart." "How can your mama's head be up in the clouds?" Buddy asked. "Ain't it attached to her neck?" "Look, it's Killy the horse," Bean says suddenly, an edge of excitement in his voice. An old man riding a horse-drawn wagon is coming down the lane. The horse looks like it's going to drop dead at any minute. I've never seen a sorrier-looking animal. And the man doesn't look much better. He's wearing filthy old clothes and has a wild, whiskery beard. The wagon is piled high with all sorts of trash. "Murderer," Porkchop whispers. "What?" I ask. "He killed the horse, whipped it to death," Ira says. "The man doesn't look like he could kill a fly, let alone a horse." "Says who?" I ask. "Says everybody," Porkchop says. The boys grow quiet as the wagon passes. The next thing I know, all the boys are chasing after the wagon, taunting the old man. Their mocking cries fill the lane. "Killy the horse! Killy the horse!" They jump onto the back of the wagon. "Leave me be!" the old man cries, but he loses his balance and goes tumbling onto the dusty lane. "Leave me be!" the old man cries, but he loses his balance and goes tumbling onto the dusty lane. The boys erupt into peals of laughter. A lady steps out of her house and shouts, "You boys stop that right now, you hear me?" The boys mouth a few half-hearted "yes, ma'ams," and come sauntering back, snickering under their breath. "You see the look in his eyes when we jumped on the wagon?" Porkchop says. "That was swell." "You said it, pal," Bean says. Killy the horse stands up and climbs gingerly back into the wagon, gives a whistle, and starts off. "What should we do now?" Ira asks. "Maybe you should go drown some kittens," I suggest. "Ain't no fun in drowning kittens," Bean says. "Yeah," Porkchop says. "You gotta light their tails on fire and watch 'em run around." A tall man carrying a sack over his shoulder turns onto Curry Lane, and Beans inhales sharply. "Poppy," he says, his throat thick. Then he leaps up and runs down the lane. Beans throws himself headlong into the arms of his father, who drops his sack and hoists Beans up easily, hugging him hard. Kermit and Buddy go racing down the lane too, shouting, "Poppy's home!" Even Termite waddles to greet his master, yipping happily. My uncle's face is tan as old shoe leather. He looks hot and tired, and has a pale patch of skin on his chin where a beard must have been. Aunt Minnie opens a door and steps out onto the porch. She doesn't fling herself into his arms and kiss him like Mama when she sees Archie. She just wipes her hands on the apron and says, "You shaved, Vernon?" "Stopped at the barber shop on my way home," he says, rubbing his chin. He looks at me and back at Aunt Minnie, a question in his eyes. "Something you want to tell me?" Aunt Minnie rolls her eyes. "She's Sadie Bell's girl. Just showed up." "Got the family resemblance, all right." "Poppy," Buddy says, tugging on his father's hand, "will you play marbles with me?" Pudding, thoroughly disturbed by all the shouting, starts crying. "That one ours too?" Uncle Vernon asks with a jerk of his head. "You haven't been gone that long," Aunt Minnie says, and everyone laughs. Whenever Archie comes back from a sales trip, it's like Christmas. He buys perfume for Mama, J. Ravanes, and a tall blue glass bottle that looks like a skyscraper, and pretty things for me, like mother-of-pearl comb and brush sets. Then he takes us all out for a fancy meal, chicken a la king and peach Melba ice cream, and Mama dancing after. Uncle Vernon doesn't buy treats like Archie, but things are different with him in the house. Beans is a lot nicer, and Buddy has fewer accidents, and Aunt Minnie doesn't seem so tired. Uncle Vernon's got a quiet way about him. He doesn't say much at all, but I like him. Aunt Minnie makes beef soup for dinner to celebrate Uncle Vernon being home. It's delicious. I eat 3 bowls. After the dishes are done, the boys play outside in the lanes, and Aunt Minnie delivers clean laundry. It's just Uncle Vernon and me. He pulls a sewing box down off a shelf and takes it into the parlor, where he sits by a lamp. He threads a needle, picks up a shirt from a basket of clothes needing mending, and starts sewing a tear on the elbow. His stitches are small and perfect. "Gee, I never met a man who could sew," I say. "My daddy taught me. He was an old conch sailor. He always said you should know how to mend your own sail." He cocks his head. "You know how to sew?" "Sure," I say. "Housekeeper does the mending." Uncle Vernon hands me a needle and thread and a pair of Buddy's pants. There's a tear in the bottom. I look at the radio. "Can we listen to Little Orphan Annie?" He turns it on, and we sew and listen to Annie and Sandy. "That Sandy's a smart dog," Uncle Vernon says. "Not as smart as Smokey," I say. "I saw you brought a cat. What happened to her fur?" "A bunch of mean kids did it. They tricked her with some ham and then lit her tail on fire." "That's a hard lesson," he says. "Bet she won't let that happen again." When I'm finished mending the tear, I hold out the pants for Uncle Vernon to see. "Not bad," he says. "Not much point, if you ask me," I say. "Can hardly keep pants on him." "How are you settling in here?" Uncle Vernon asks. "I'm not used to having cousins," I admit. "You'll get used to them. I see you've already acquired a taste for turtle," he says. "What?" I ask. He looks amused. "Dinner. That was 3 bowls of turtle soup you had, you know." "I thought it was beef," I say, feeling slightly sick. "Seems mean to eat something you're named after." "Nothing mean about filling your belly. And turtle's cheap meat." He studies me. "Where'd you get that name of yours?" "Mama says I've got a hard shell." And I do. I haven't cried since I was 5 years old. I don't think I've had much of a choice, to tell the truth. Who else is going to hold things together when Mama falls apart after some man disappears? Once you get out of the habit of crying, you hardly even miss it. "A hard shell, huh?" he says. "Must take after your aunt." I don't know anyone who's got a harder shell than my Minerva. "Hard as a brick," I say. Uncle Vernon looks at me. "You know, the thing about a turtle is that it looks tough, but it's got a soft underbelly." I don't say anything. "So, I hear your mother is seeing a salesman," he says, tying off a knot. "What's he sell?" "Encyclopedias," I say. "He's successful?" "Archie can sell anything," I say, and then, "Mama really likes him." He looks at me. "What about you?" "I like him a lot," I say. "He's not like all the others." He nods. "You know, your aunt and your mother were the prettiest girls in Key West in their day. They couldn't walk down a lane without boys tripping in front of them." "Mama's still pretty," I say. Mr. Leonard swore he'd leave his wife for her. Mr. Leonard? Who's he? Mrs. Leonard's husband, I explained. A family we worked for. I see, Uncle Vernon says. And how did that turn out? Mrs. Leonard fired Mama. Now that doesn't seem fair. It wasn't, especially since Mama was the third housekeeper Mr. Leonard proposed to, I say. Uncle Vernon laughs. Sounds like Mrs. Leonard should have fired Mr. Leonard. You said it, I say. Good help is hard to find.